Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my week number 11 running back start or sit decisions. Inside today's video, I'm going to be going in depth into every single matchup on the week from all of the games on Thanksgiving, on Thursday, all the way until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I think you should start or sit the running backs in all of those games. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. We're going to be talking about our sponsor a little bit later, BetMGM. They're going to be on your screen this whole entire video. So without further ado, also, if you have any questions about week 12, ask down below in the comment section. Let's get in to my week number 12 running back, start, or sit decisions. We begin with the first of the three Thanksgiving games, the Buffalo Bills at the Detroit Lions. At this point in the season, while I was one of the biggest DeAndre Swift advocates, and I was apologizing for DeAndre Swift the last couple of weeks, I was like, you know what? He's fucked us over a bunch of times in a row, but you know what? He's gonna figure it out. Something's going to change. And while he's been scoring touchdowns and scoring around 10 points, right, it's not the worst. But at the end of the day, it feels like at this point, nothing is going to change. It feels like once they reach the goal line, they're knocking on the door. It doesn't matter if DeAndre Swift puts the team on his back like Greg Jennings in that old Madden clip. It doesn't matter at all, because once they're knocking on the door, Jamal Williams is going to go into the game and run right through the defense and score a touchdown. The amount of touchdowns that Jamal Williams has at this point in the season with not having that many carries is absolutely insane. We've talked for years about how running backs get vultured. Jamal Williams is the king of the vultures, and at this point in the season, in week 12, I'm starting Jamal Williams, and I am sick and tired of this DeAndre Swift bullshit that I'm sitting him down, and maybe this will teach him a lesson. If we all sit him down, then he's going to have understood that, hey, you know what? I get why you sat me, but next week I'm going to play better. We did that earlier in the season with Kyle Pitts. I told everyone to sit him, and then the next game he came out, he balled out. So let's hope that is the case this week with DeAndre Swift. We're sitting his ass down, and we're firing up Jamal with 2A's Williams. Devin Singletary is start-worthy at this point. It appears that the Buffalo Bills have finally figured out, just like they did at the end of last season, that, hey, maybe we should run the ball. Hey, maybe instead of having Josh throw these stupid interceptions at the end of the game, let's just run the ball and get out of there. Hopefully they continue with that philosophy, because up against the Lions defense, Devin Singletary should have a pretty good game. James Cook has been getting some work, but ultimately he's not start-worthy at this point. Next up, we got the New York Football Giants at the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry's World. Saquon Barkley shit the bed big time up against the Detroit Lions, and there honestly isn't much to say about it. I thought that was an incredibly good matchup. I thought the Giants would at least be close to that game, right? When the Lions play, their offense is so good that you could see them keeping it close with any team, right? Even the Bills. Maybe they keep it close with the Bills. But I did not see coming at all the Giants falling completely flat in that game. The Giants were awful. That was a really easy spot for them, and they fell apart. Saquon had an awful game, but again, when you have a running back with the skill set of Saquon Barkley, I'm not panicking. I would be a little pissed, sure, if I started him last week and I lost, which happened to me in one of my leagues. But at the end of the day, you're rolling Saquon out with confidence, even up against the Dallas Cowboys defense. Tony Pollard is a start as well. Tony Pollard went to pound town up against the Minnesota Vikings. And this is what I've been talking about for weeks. Tony Pollard is the better running back than Zeke. I continue to bang the drum for that. They said they were going to start Tony Pollard. It didn't really seem like that at the beginning of the game, but obviously Tony Pollard ripped the Minnesota Vikings a brand new asshole. They tore their asshole just agape. It was a very good game out of Tony Pollard. But even with that good game, Zeke, still eating. Still eating. Zeke's going to play this week. He's going to play this week, so you're going to start him. I don't expect much out of Zeke, but at the end of the day, Jerry Jones, Fat Boy, Mike McCarthy still want to play Zeke, so he's still going to get touches. Whether I like it, whether you like it or not. So Zeke is a start. He's not an upper echelon start, but he's a start. I definitely like Tony Pollard more. Matt Breida is a handcuff, so he is going to be a sit. Next up, we move to the final game on Thanksgiving, the New England Patriots at the Minnesota Vikings. The ultimate test for the new nightmare, Mr. Kirk Cousins, because we all know Kirk Cousins is great at 1 o'clock. Last week, the game's at 4:25, and he's snoozing. He's sleeping like Snorlax. So let's hope that this week, even though the game's at night, that we have a solid performance out of Kirk Cousins, because if the offense isn't moving the ball, then Dalvin Cook's probably going to play bad too. But at the end of the day, I don't think we should project the downfall of the Minnesota Vikings here. They should have at least a decent game. The Patriots defense is really good. We saw that up against the Jets, but then again, the Jets offense is just really bad. So Dalvin Cook is start worthy every single week. Of course, there's a reason why you drafted him inside the first round. All those weeks ago at this point, because it's week number 12. Ramondre Stevenson, it's still, in my opinion, Ramondre Stevenson season. We did see Damian Harris technically get more yards running the ball than Ramondre Stevenson, but that's because Damian Harris had a huge burst run. I think it was either 25 or 30 yards, something like that in the game. Ramondre Stevenson wasn't that good at running in that game, but he did catch a bunch of passes. He's actually Mac Jones's #1 target since Mac Jones kind of took back over from Bailey Zappi. So at this point, I really am still comfortable starting Ramondre Stevenson. Again, we just saw Tony Pollard and Zeke run train on that defense in Minnesota. Alexander Mattison is just a handcuff, so he's a sitting again. I don't think Damian Harris really plays as big of a role this week. Next up, we move to the beginning of the Sunday slate with the Broncos country. Let's ride at the Carolina Panthers. So the Denver Broncos, I almost said the Panthers. The Denver Broncos ended up cutting Mr. Melvin Gordon, the king of fumbling the football. So now the backfield is comprised of, because Chase Edmonds is on IR, who they traded for a couple of weeks ago from the Dolphins in that trade for Bradley Chubb. Now the Broncos only have Latavius Murray and Marlon Mack. Latavius Murray has legitimately looked good. And the issue with Latavius Murray is that Melvin Gordon was still there. While Melvin Gordon wasn't performing like Melvin Gordon did back in the day in LA with the Chargers, he was still doing stuff out there. It wasn't like he just was a shell of himself, right? He's still decent. While he does have fumbling issues, they're still going to give him carries. But Marlon Mack, we kind of saw it. We've seen it. He's really not the best. So I think Latavius Murray now, even up against the Panthers defense that is way better than most people give them credit for, I really think Latavius Murray, if they don't add anyone, Darrell Henderson got cut, so maybe they add Darrell Henderson, and that throws a wrench into everything, and it fucks everything over. But based upon where it's sitting right now on Tuesday, I honestly think Latavius Murray's a pretty solid start this week. Donta Foreman shit the bed last week. That was a really bad game out of both the Ravens and the Panthers. The Broncos do have a tough defense, so Donta Foreman's not a guy I'm banging the drum for, but he is start worthy this week. Chuba Hubbard got his role stolen by Donta Foreman, and Marlon Mack, again, just really isn't all that good. Next up, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Cleveland Browns. As of right now, Leonard Fournette's health for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is up in the air. He could end up playing, he could end up not playing. Now, right now, based upon everything that I have read from the Bucs, it seems like Rashad with 2 A's White is prime to take over the lead back role from Uncle Lenny. So if you have Leonard Fournette and he's a guy that you're starting every single week, I would take my foot off the gas. Now, I know there's going to be some situations where you got to start Leonard Fournette if he plays, and I understand that, right? Because it is not a guarantee at all that Rashad White takes over, but if you start looking at the tape, you fucking put your binoculars on, you watch the tape, Rashad White looks better than Leonard Fournette. So right now, Rashad White is a start. We'll kind of monitor this as it goes up until Sunday. 9-inch Nicholas Chubb is a must start every single game. The Buccaneers' run defense obviously is pretty decent, but ultimately, Nick Chubb's a guy you're starting every week. Doesn't matter which fucking defense he's playing against, you're going to start him. Again, Leonard Fournette is a sit, but we will continue to monitor this up until Sunday. And then Kareem Hunt. Man, Kareem Hunt, I thought he was going to have at least a little bit more value than he does right now. He hasn't really done anything outside of week number 1. Next up, we move to the Baltimore Ravens at the Jacksonville Jaguars. But before we get on into this game, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at BetMGM. Now, if you're a brand new user to BetMGM, they have a no-brainer offer for you. All you got to do is click on the link in the video description down below or in the pinned comment to activate your offer. Now, this involves placing a $10 pre-game moneyline bet on the World Cup. Now, not everyone is going to follow soccer, right? But I'm going to explain this to you because it is free money, $200 in free bets. All you have to do is look at the screen right now. I'm going to show you. Now, BetMGM is going to be on your screen. At the top of the screen, there's a bar. It's a black bar. You're going to click on soccer. There's a little soccer ball next to it. And then you are going to literally pick any game. Doesn't matter. I'm going to pick the biggest favorite for tomorrow's game. I'm going to bet $10 on that pregame money line. And then I'm going to win $200 in free bets if anyone scores a goal during the World Cup. So in that game, you might lose your bet. It might be a draw, 0-0. But guess what? You're still going to get your $200 in free bets as long as someone scores again in the World Cup, which is guaranteed to happen because you have to score a goal in order to win the World fucking Cup. So I really think this is an offer you want to take advantage of right now. Get your $200 in free bets, and you don't even have to bet the free bets, obviously, on the World Cup. You can bet on the NFL, NHL, NBA, college football, college basketball, whatever you want. So make sure you guys take advantage of this right now before it is too late. It is going to expire in early December, so we only have about a 2-week timeline with this offer. So again, make sure you take advantage of it now before it's too late. Turn $10 into $200 in free bets on BetMGM. So back on into this game here, the Ravens at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Travis Etienne has put himself into must-start category. Now, last week they were on bye. The week prior to that, he did not have all of that great of a game up against the Kansas City Chiefs. But ultimately, not Travis Kelce, because I was talking about the Chiefs. Put Kelce next to him. Travis Etienne, Etienne season. Travis Etienne. I know the Ravens defense stifled Donta Foreman last week, but like that was with Baker Mayfield under center. Let's be honest with you. The Panthers are an unmitigated fucking disaster. The Jaguars, we've seen some great, we've seen some bad, but even through the trials and tribulations of playing the game, the bad, the good, Travis Etienne has been really consistent. So even up against the Ravens defense that I think deserves a little bit more credit, I'm starting Etienne. The Ravens running backs, I'm fucking just done with this. One of these guys probably going to have a good game. Maybe none of them have a good game. Kenyon Drake, Gus Edwards. Kenyon Drake was the only starter last week. I was like, oh, now I'm excited. I'm excited. The blood's starting to go downstairs. It's time for Kenyon Drake to get a bunch of carries. And then obviously they shit the bed against the Panthers. Maybe this is a bounce back spot. Maybe Drake and Edwards both go fucking insane nuclear in this game. But right now I'm just done trying to figure this shit out. Jermichael Hasty is also City's the backup for ETN. Next we move to the Houston Texans at the Miami Dolphins. And in this one, I'm telling you to start Dameon Pierce. But in reality, I have no confidence in Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce is a great player. He really is. He's one of the best rookies, in my opinion, in the NFL. He's extremely talented. If the Texans weren't such a dumpster fire of a team, Dameon Pierce literally might be a top 5 running back right now. He might be. You insert Dameon Pierce to that Texans offense a couple years ago when Watson was clicking on all cylinders, Dameon Pierce would have been a fucking monster. But now we're on the Davis Money Mills Houston Texans. And you're going up against the Miami Dolphins, which is one of the best run defense in the NFL. They locked up Nick Chubb and threw away the fucking key. Dameon Pierce is screwed in this spot. Now, Dameon Pierce is so talented that he might be able to just break off a touchdown or catch a couple of passes and be start-worthy. So that's why he's listed as a start, because again, it's hard to find running backs that are actually start-worthy, that you can play, that even in a bad matchup against the Dolphins, right? I could see Dameon Pierce scoring 9 points, 10 points. I don't expect him to have that boom game here, but I also don't expect him to necessarily shit the bed. But at the end of the day, if I had other running backs that I considered start-worthy, I'd probably just bench Dameon Pierce. Jeff Wilson is the guy in Miami. So I'm starting Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson has been incredible ever since he was traded to the Miami Dolphins, and now, maybe after the bye week, they give him even more reins in this offense. He was already a guy that basically leapfrogged over Raheem Mostert. Maybe he's going to leapfrog even further going forward. The Texans' run defense is absolute dick cheese. They have one of the worst run defenses, if not the worst defense in the NFL against the run. So Jeff Wilson and Mostert are both starts, but Mostert's a fringe start. Jeff Wilson might be a top 5, top 3 running back this week. I love the upside. He was amazing in week number 10 up against the Cleveland Browns. Sexy Rexy Burkhead is going to be a sit for me. Next up, we got the Chicago Bears at the New York Jumbo Jets. And with how bad Zach Wilson has looked, the other Wilson, and not Garrett Wilson either, with how bad Zach Wilson looks, I can't tell you to start Michael Carter or James Robinson. This was an offense that early on in the season was just running the rock at such an efficient rate. Hand the ball to Breece Hall, chug the ball up the field. Moving up the field methodically, easily moving the rock. And now this Zach Wilson dumb motherfucker, this idiot, can't move the ball worth anything. So even if I liked Michael Carter, even if Michael Carter was standing wide open right next to him, this is what happened in the game. I believe it was Michael Carter. It might have been James Robinson. Either way, for all intensive purposes of this being an example, envision Michael Carter standing to the left of Zach Wilson. To the left. Zach Wilson drops back. There's no one around Michael Carter. He's waving his hands like one of those wavy inflatable arm tube men, right? He's like, I'm fucking open, Zach. You dumb bastard. We haven't completed a pass in a quarter. Throw me the ball. And then you know what Zach Wilson does? He throws the thing and airmails it 20 yards over him. Zach Wilson is so bad that I can't even play Michael Carter or James Robinson. For now, maybe he bounces back. Maybe it's just one bad game for little Zach. But right now, I don't trust him. David Montgomery looked great last week. I talked about this last week. It always seems to be at the end of the season, for some reason, David Montgomery plays like just shit, really. Like he wasn't good at all to start the season. And then something happens. And then magically he becomes good. For instance, what happened? Khalil Herbert's hurt. So now David Montgomery's the guy. Now he's steamrolling teams. Now the Jets, tough look. Tough matchup. So I'm not banging the drum aggressively for Montgomery, but I would start him, and I'm sitting Tristan Ebner. His role is nowhere near the role that Khalil Herbert had. Next up, we got the Cincinnati Bengals at the Titans, the Tennessee Titans, and you guessed it, you're going to have to start Derrick Henry this week. You start him every single week, regardless of the matchup. The guy could run for over 150 yards and multiple touchdowns. The guy is that good, and it is now hard nipple weather. It's cold as fuck outside in Tennessee, and now it's much harder to tackle Derrick Henry. This is when Derrick Henry fully levels up. He hits his Super Saiyan mode here. When it gets cold, Derrick Henry is a start. Joe Mixon gets concussed, does not return, is dancing with the team in the locker room afterwards. Who knows if he plays this week? If he plays this week, I'm going to play him. Samaje Perine, I expect to be the starter. The Titans' run defense is pretty good. So I'm not saying this is a smash for Perine. Perine went insane last week up against the Steelers, but he is still a start-worthy guy. Again, obviously, you're going to start Derrick Henry, and it's supposed to say Dontrell Hilliard on the screen. It says Joe Mixon. It's not too big of a deal, so we're going to go ahead and sit Dontrell Hilliard. Next up, we move to the Atlanta Falcons at the Washington Commanders. Now, I still think Brian Robinson's a good player. I still like this matchup for Brian Robinson, but something happened to Antonio Gibson. I've talked about this before. Like, the second Brian Robinson got activated, something happened to Antonio Gibson. Like, Antonio Gibson was playing literally awful. I've never seen someone get that much opportunity and just be that bad. Like, Antonio Gibson was getting like 3.1, 3.3 yards per carry a game. He was playing terrible. And then, magically, once Brian Robinson peeks his head up, like in Home Improvement when the guy peeks his head over the fence, that's what happened. And then the second that happened, Antonio Gibson put on the NOS, like when you're playing one of those what are they called? The racing games when you're at like the movie theater at the bowling alley and you hit the NOS and your car goes super fast and your car like lifts up and shit. That's what happened to Antonio Gibson. The Falcons defense is absolutely terrible. Laughably bad. So Antonio Gibson should have a good game. So I'm going to start him. Cordero Patterson only did good because he scored a kick return touchdown. I'm a big Cordero Patterson guy, but until he really proves something, I'm sitting him. Same thing goes with Algier. This is just This is not a running back by committee in Atlanta. This is a RBBO, running back by orgy, because they use like 4 different fucking running backs. Brian Robinson is a sit right now. Next up, we move to the LA Chargers at the Arizona Cardinals. In a very funny move, it would be hilarious if Melvin Gordon signed back with the LA Chargers after all that happened between the two. Now that Melvin Gordon's available, maybe that doesn't end up happening, but Austin Eckler is the guy. Mr. Clean, the bald man himself, must start every week. You have to continue to roll with Austin Eckler. This guy has looked, outside of the first couple weeks of the season, it was like a rocky road to start off. I was like, oh wow. As someone who loves Austin Eckler, as someone who really advocated for Austin Eckler literally potentially being the #1 running back in fantasy, and there wasn't many people that would back me. They'd be like, Nick, that's a little crazy saying Austin Eckler could be the #1 pick. Let's be honest, if you took him #1 overall, you'd be pretty fucking happy outside the first couple weeks of the season. The Cardinals defense just got thrashed. They just got slaughtered. Massacred. It was embarrassing. The Arizona Cardinals got the ever-living shit beat out of them. And I make this analogy a lot, but it's like they got beaten so bad that they started getting teabagged by the Niners and they just couldn't do anything. They just could not do anything. They couldn't figure anything out. It was embarrassing. It was hard to watch. Eckler's going to go crazy against the Cardinals. James Conner just flipped on a switch over the last couple of weeks. Again, to start off the season, things were bad. Then he gets hurt, comes back, bad. But recently, he kind of flipped that switch, turned things on, and now I'm comfortable starting Conner. And again, the Chargers defense really isn't all that great. Going into every season, I talk up the Chargers defense because on paper, they're always look really good, and then they never end up being good. There's a lot of injuries that happens, which sucks, obviously, but James Conner at this point's a guy that he's not necessarily must start. He's not like a top 5, top 10 guy every week in my rankings, but he's getting close to that. He scored a nice touchdown up against the Niners. Isaiah Spiller's a sit. Same goes with Keontae Ingram. Ingram barely touched the field until the Cardinals pulled everyone because they were getting the shit beat out of them. Next up, we got the, turn your volume down, the Las Vegas Raiders at the Seattle Seahawks. Josh Jacobs has been pretty reliable this season. There's been some really good points where he was reliably a top 5 guy over a couple week stretch, 3 weeks. There's been points where he's not been the best, but ultimately, even with the dismay of the Raiders offense, we've still really just seen Devontae Adams as well as Josh Jacobs be relatively consistent. The Seahawks defense is a little bit better than I did give them credit for. To start off the season, they were literally terrible. Like one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Recently, they've started to take some leaps and bounds, and they've looked better. I'll give them that credit, but ultimately, I'm not giving them so much credit to where it would make me panic to start Josh Jacobs. Right, I play him every week. Kenneth Walker III, Sir Kenneth Walker, ever since taking over from Rashad Penny, he really hasn't had that many down spots. I know they were on bye last week. The week prior to that was kind of that quote-unquote down game for Walker. But again, like the Raiders defense isn't very good. This whole Raiders team's a fucking disaster. The Seahawks are on like the up. The Raiders are on the down. Even though they beat the Broncos, let's be honest with you, the fucking Helen Keller School of Blind and Deaf could probably beat the Denver Broncos at this point. So Kenneth Walker is a start. Amir Abdullah is a sit. Originally going into the year, I thought this was going to be a running back by committee in Las Vegas, but it's really just Josh Jacobs is the guy. And then Travis Homer is the backup. They also have Wiki DJ Dallas, but Kenneth Walker is very clearly the guy as well. Next up, we got the LA Rams versus the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. So when it comes to the Rams, Cam Akers now is foreseeably the guy, but they've been using Williams as well. But I think Akers looks better, but they cut Darrell Henderson. So a lot of shit going on. I'm just going to sit back and watch. I don't want to have some crazy take like, oh, Cam Akers might be a league winner, because at the end of the day, the Rams are not good enough for Cam Akers to be a league winner because they just aren't. The offensive line isn't good enough for that to happen. Like, it's not like Cam Akers, one of these running backs that even in bad situations, like McCaffrey in Carolina, when they're down in games, they were still going to him because he catches the ball. You just dump the ball off and the guy can make anything happen. Austin Eckler, the Chargers are down. Guess what? They dump the ball off to him. Cam Akers isn't that prolific pass catching back. Can he catch the ball? Sure. But is he one of those guys? Fuck no, baby. So Cam Akers, to me, is not start-worthy right now. Neither is Kyren Williams, but it's very interesting to see how this situation develops because obviously they got rid of Darrell Henderson, and Cam Akers must be pissed because if you guys remember, a couple of weeks ago, Cam Akers requested a trade, and they didn't end up trading him. So Akers and Williams sits. Pacheco is just that guy right now. The problem with Pacheco is he doesn't catch passes, so he's limited by that. But he's getting a lot of yards. He's getting a lot of touches. He looks really good. He just needs to find the end zone or catch 2 balls a game, and he'd be chef's kiss. Menu flick. Jerick McKinnon still the pass-catching back on the team, but not good enough to be start-worthy. Next up, we got the New Orleans Saints at the San Francisco 49ers. Now, not last week, but the week before in Week 10. People were starting to panic. They were like, Nick, what's happening? Elijah Mitchell's getting more usage. Nick, is Christian McCaffrey fucked? Nick, this, that, the other thing. Christian McCaffrey this, Christian McCaffrey that. Are you worried? Are you worried? Are you worried? And I always said, no, I'm not worried. Christian McCaffrey is one of the best running backs in the NFL. Maybe even the best all-around running back in the National Football League. And then last week in Mexico City against the Cardinals, we saw very clearly that Mitchell's going to get touches, but McCaffrey's the guy. Like, it should never have been in doubt. Sure, there's going to be games where maybe Mitchell gets more work. Sure. But at the end of the day, McCaffrey, you still got to rank him in the top 5, maybe even number 1 every week, right? He's just that good. Alvin Kamara's been kind of on the down. Again, I've been someone who's been very vocal about the fact that I think Jameis Winston should be starting. Now, obviously, Andy Dalton, the Ginger Ninja, the Red Rifle, cooked up a real solid performance last week, so I'll give it to him. But at the end of the day, it's fucking boring, but it's better for Alvin Kamara with Dalton under center because he dumps off more. But recently, Kamara hasn't been that great, so maybe we need the switch up, but they're not gonna change back to Jameis. Even if I beg on my knees, gawk 9,000, they're not gonna give him back. David Johnson is a sit, and so is Elijah Mitchell. Next up, we move to Sunday Night Football. The Green Bay Packers, the Cheeseheads at the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles win a nail-biter against the Colts, and Not there anymore. Nick Sirianni acts like they win the Super Bowl. He runs over to the Colts fans. He says, "That was for Frank Reich." Okay, pal. Congrats. You barely beat the Colts. Congrats. Oh, but Nick, the Colts beat the Chiefs. It's fucking real dumb argument that people were making online. But yeah, congrats, Eagles. Sanders has had 2 down games. But we talk about this all the time when I talk about Sanders. When you're in an offense that's as good as the Eagles, there's going to be games where there's duds because there's so many weapons. Now, Goddard's no longer there, so now there's even more open opportunities, but, like, A.J. Brown is this menace. He's this huge bastard that can catch passes in the red zone. Jalen Hurts, slippery bitch, can run into the end zone. They have Kenneth Gainwell. They have other running backs. It's not just the Miles Sanders experience. But Miles Sanders is still really good, and I'm not going to let 2 down games really make me panic, especially against the Packers. So I'm going to roll with Miles Sanders. Again, I understand there's downside. I talk about it every week. I'm not someone who's just vocally throwing that away, right? Like, you got to understand the situation he's in, but he's so good that in reality, it's okay. But, like, I understand why people might panic about him. And I was someone who has not been the most vocal Miles Sanders guy. I was against Miles Sanders in the offseason. I thought he was a stupid fucking pick where people were picking him. But I ended up being wrong. So, you know, I don't just stick to these takes I had in the offseason. Aaron Jones of the Packers has really taken over. A.J. Dillon is not as good as people give him credit for. He looks like one of the worst picks he was either the 5th or 6th round of fantasy drafts, like taking the fucking handcuff in the 6th round. I said the same thing about Tony Pollard, and now Tony Pollard's the guy. But again, like, we've had so much proven of Mike McCarthy, that fat fuck, and Jerry Jones being like, this offense runs through Zeke, and I sound like Bill Clinton. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, but yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, for years we just have this sample size of Tony Pollard getting fucked in the ass, and like, now Aaron Jones, magically, A.J. Dillon's going to really take over, right? And yeah, okay. It sucked for parts of the season because Dillon was taking away opportunities from Jones, but Jones is the guy, so we're going to keep rolling with Jones. Same with Miles Sanders, sit Dillon down. Gainwell's going to score every once in a while, but he's not start-worthy. Final game here, Monday Night Football. The Pittsburgh Steelers at the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. Interesting game. Najee Harris sneakily looking pretty good. Looks kind of good now. Again, I'm not saying Najee Harris is back, like he's this top 5 running back, but he's looking better. Maybe that injury that he had earlier on in the season literally impacted him. That's why he looked like he was running in fucking molasses, like he's running through quicksand, right? Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my thought process on things because he looks marginally better right now. So again, to kind of reiterate what I'm saying here, I'm not saying that Najee Harris is fully back, that he's this guy that I really thought he was going to be good this season, that turned out to be wrong. But like, I'm not saying he's all the way back, he's must start, but he's starting to look better. And the Colts defense isn't, ooh, spooky, you know, he can still do good. Jonathan Taylor, he's back. Jonathan Taylor's back. I'm rolling with Jonathan Taylor. Like, Jeff Saturday kicked things into the oomph degree. So I'm playing Jonathan Taylor every week. I mean, I was playing him even when he was shit, but I did start to panic a little bit. I'm no longer panicking about Jonathan Taylor. Jaylen Warren's a sit. He's banged up. Deion Jackson's a sit because really, I think that while Jaylen Warren had that opportunity to potentially snatch the role, and like with Antonio Gibson, like Najee just kicked it into that next gear once that talk started happening. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. It's free. Might as well hit it. Click the notification bell too. Get notified when I make these videos every single day. Love talking to you guys in the comment section. If you have any questions, ask them down below. I would appreciate talking to you guys. And again, make sure you guys check out BetMGM. It's very helpful to me if you check it out. It's very helpful to you, again, because there's not very many sportsbooks that are just giving away $200 in free bets. Again, this $10 pregame moneyline bet on the World Cup is guaranteed to hit. Someone's going to score a goal in the World Cup, so you're going to get your $200 in free bets. So make sure you take advantage of it now, again, before it is too late. I love you guys all so much. Hope you all have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, hit that outro. Good boy!